When a horse sweats, it uses its sweat glands to secrete sweat, so a mixture of water and salts to use the principle of evaporation to cool down the body core temperature. The horse has approximately 400 and 500 sweat glands per square centimetre, so an incredibly large quantity. The horse has them mainly in the area of the neck, the breast and the lower belly. Using this very effective mechanism, the horse tries to cool down its body core temperature. If my horse in the summer or in any stressful situation sweats excessively, then it is essentially important that I provide my horse with the electrolytes that are in the sweat. Sweat contains salts that we call electrolytes, and I need to replenish these with the feed. If I don't do so, this will lead to a deficiency of these salts. My horse won't be able to sweat optimally. That will have an impact on other metabolic processes that might not work as well anymore. And at one point, if this situation becomes extreme, the mechanism as a whole will collapse. The salts that are emitted with the sweat are mainly sodium and chloride, but also potassium, magnesium and phosphorus are in the sweat, and those have to be provided to the horse if it sweats profusely. Regular salt licks and also regular cooking salt only contain sodium and chloride. These are the two main important ones, and of course can buffer a part of the loss, but usually more chloride than sodium is emitted. Of course, it is much more effective if I provide these salts in the exact ratio. In order to replenish the exact correct ratio of electrolytes in the feed, I have to rely on a supplement that contains the salts in the exactly correct composition, the exactly correct ratio. As a rule, you can say that if a horse loses 1 litre of sweat, that we need approximately 3 grams of sodium, 1 gram of potassium and 5 grams of chloride. The sweat score chart shows the amount of sweat that your horse produces at a certain level of sweating, and from that, it is easy to calculate how many electrolytes I have to provide. 1, for example, represents very light sweating, whereas 5 means really foamy sweating. And from this level, it is derived how much sweat that means to compensate for the loss of electrolytes. Because in contrast to other supplements where you feed a fixed amount, you really have to adapt the amount depending on the amount of sweat the horse has lost. Apart from the electrolytes, it is of course important to replenish the horse's water balance, because sweat doesn't only consist of salts, but mainly water. That means that I have to make sure that my horse also drinks enough after sweating. Horses that are hesitant to drink, of course, have to be animated to drink. If you are unsure if they ingest enough water from their drinking bowl, it is smart to put a bucket in the stall to make sure. You can also add a little apple juice to the water or put an apple in there to encourage them to play, thus ingesting the water. Or you prepare a very, very light mash with a lot of water so that they replenish their water balance. With horses, just like humans, there are some that sweat incredibly fast and some that don't sweat at all. And really, horses that don't sweat a lot, they don't have a need to replenish electrolytes, because that really only needs to happen when sweat is produced. And there is absolutely no difference if I sweat because I'm afraid, if I sweat because I exercise a lot, if I sweat because my coat is too long. Sweat is sweat, and as soon as I sweat, I have to replenish water and electrolytes. So, I have 5 tips for you. First, instead of the drinking bowl, try to offer your horse water from a large bucket or another container, and maybe add some apple juice. Second, you can prepare your mash with more water than indicated, so that the horse ingests more water with the feed. Third, it is essential to make sure that you provide enough electrolytes. Fourth, most of you have a salt lick in the stall, but during the summer, the horse spends a lot of time outside. So put another salt lick on your field, so your horse can replenish its electrolytes. You have to make sure that there are no brood mares with foals in these fields, because the salt can harm the foals. Fifth, You should always offer your horse a place in the shade or other places to rest, or maybe even consider leaving your horse outside overnight and putting it in the stall during the day. Age is only a limited factor because the number of sweat glands is predetermined, so it is specified at an early age. I am a person who sweats a lot or not that much, or if my horse will sweat a lot or not that much. But it is a fact that older horses have a slower metabolism, thus may be sweating a little faster and then having a harder time to replenish their reserve. So especially with older horses, you really have to pay attention and react when they sweat. There is no big difference between mares and stallions. It is more a question of character. The mind is an important factor when it comes to sweat production and the amount of sweat. If I have a nervous, agitated horse, he will sweat more because he has to cool down his body core temperature, compared to a sweet-tempered horse that doesn't get easily unsettled. It's not a question of sex as much as a question of character.